Good stuff. I wanted to thank you all for coming to tonight and join me in my webinar for property investors. Tonight specifically, I'll be sharing three things with you, and that would be how to work with virtual assistants, how to use virtual assistants to help you find off-market property deals, and lastly, where to find virtual assistants. Okay. If we do have any technical issues, Mark was just talking about it. Um, I hope that we don't. If we do, I'll try and log back in straight away. Good stuff. Okay. So a little bit about me. My name's Christina Osborne. I've been investing in property for about 3 years now. I'm when I attend PIN meetings, I generally get asked, "Oh, so where are you from?" And I basically say I'm from the Philippines. And that's when I'd start hearing people go, "Oh, my VA is from the Philippines," or "I know somebody's got a VA from the Philippines. Another landlord so and so has got a VA from the Philippines." And occasionally I'd get asked, "Could you help me find a VA?" And I do it as a kind of one-off, ad hoc, informal basis until the pandemic hit. And then my previous business, that's not related to property, it was wedding photography. Unfortunately, that's had to stop. And that's when I started a different business. And this was what came to mind. I've been doing it informally for the last 3 years. And I thought, "Do you know what? I might as well turn it into a business." So here I am. I'm just going to let a couple more people in. Okay, fantastic. For those who just joined us, thank you very much for coming and joining me in this webinar tonight. I was just telling everyone what I want to achieve today, and that would be three things. One is that I want to show you how to work with virtual assistants. Secondly, I want to show you how to use virtual assistants to find you off market property deals. And lastly, where to find virtual assistants. Okay, so I was just talking about me and how I started this business. Myself, I'm a property investor for the last 3 years. I attend lots of BIN meetings and I get asked with some of the people I meet during the networking sessions if I can help them find a VA when they find out that I am from the Philippines, because apparently they know lots and lots of landlords who's got VAs from the Philippines. So more about me, what I've been doing over the last month, not too long, not since I started this VA business, is I've been training virtual assistants to work with landlords and property investors. You think I'd have done this from the start? I didn't. I actually, Demir is one of my first customers. That was what I did previously, was just that I'd find them VAs and then I'd leave them to it. Okay, I've now refined my business. I don't just find VAs, I actually train them before I put them forward as candidates to work with property investors. So, what is it that I train them to do? I do a 3-day training course for these aspiring virtual assistants. They basically learn. It's hard to know when you're in the UK and everything you know is here in this country, and everything about property investing. You've done lots of trainings. It's hard to know what other people don't understand and know about property investing, or even know anything about the UK. So lots of people rush into using a virtual assistant from another country without understanding what they don't know. So even simple things like knowing what a terrace property looks like is very much alien to somebody from the Philippines, as well as postcodes. Like, what is that? What do you use it for? So that's what I do. I start from the very, very basic when I train my virtual assistants, and it takes over 3 days. I start with the basics, and then I teach them a little bit about due diligence and doing market research using Rightmove and Zoopla, Spare Room, Airbnb, and that. And then on the third day, I teach them lead generation. Now I understand that there's I don't know. I might be exaggerating if I say there's 100 strategies out there, but I don't teach them all of that. I only teach them a handful of strategies that property investors who've never hired a VA before can use immediately with very little instructions and very minimal training involved. Okay. So that's on the VA side. Now I realized that actually what the other side of this business of finding virtual assistants for my clients, property investors, is that both sides need to be shown how to work more effectively together. And so that's one of my goals here today as well. In fact, that's the first thing I'll be discussing, which would be how to work with virtual assistants. So I'm just repeating the objectives that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. So we'll start with my first objective, which is working with virtual assistants. There are three things that you should know before you do. As I mentioned earlier, lots of landlords and property investors just rush into finding one. They're actually all over the place. It's so easy to find them, guys. I will tell you, all the places you can find them without understanding the things that you have to bear in mind when working with VAs. I understand most of us are solopreneurs. We work on our own. Although we have power teams, we generally just hire them for a per project basis, but we don't actually have like an in-house team. And so we don't know anything about hiring people, much less someone from a different country, a different culture, and a different time zone. And I realized that there's a little bit more education needed, that in a way is going to help my clients make the most use of working with their virtual assistants. And so these three things are having a system in place, knowing and managing expectations, and then finally it's cultural perspective. Okay, so I'll go through each one of them. So we've got systems. You've probably seen this acronym before. It stands for saves you from stress, time. No, okay, I'll do that again. I think it saves you from stress and saves you time, energy, and money. And nothing can be more true when you're working with a virtual assistant. The systems that you need at the very least from the start. I'm not talking about the complicated system, guys. Here we have, for example, you need to know where your virtual office is. Now, I am not one to recommend anything fancy. There's lots of platforms out there. Most of them have subscriptions basis involved. So if you're happy to use that, go ahead, feel free to do so. But it can be as simple as, for example, having a cloud-based storage system for files that both you and the VA can access remotely. So it's free. Google Drive is free. I think OneDrive, and there's a couple others. There's Dropbox. There's obviously other limitations with them. There's also Trello and other remote working platforms where you can use it as your virtual office. So you need to know how you're going to be working with your VA in a kind of literal sense, that you have an office, albeit it's a virtual office, wherein you both can work together. The second thing about needing a system when working with a VA is your default diary. In the Philippines, they are 8 hours ahead of you from between October or end of October to about end of March. That's because that's the daylight savings time. And let me just let someone in. And apart from the fact that you're in a different time zone, you need a default diary just to make things easier when it comes to working with someone from the Philippines and someone who's working remotely. So this, for example, can mean that while you're still asleep, your VA is already getting on with some work that you've given him or her beforehand. And then you might have half an hour to maybe an hour's time going over the work by the time you wake up, and you've seen everything on sent to you by emails or wherever it is that you convene and do your work. You don't always have to have daily meetings on Zoom. It's not necessary. Of course, it depends on what sort of work you do with your VA, but I think probably at most about once a week you can have a team huddle. But whatever it is that you both decide to do, you can consider that as part of your system to have a default diary with your VA. Okay. And third, you've got communication. And then fourth is instruction. Now, when it comes to communication, what happens with Filipinos is that um, they tend not to speak up so much. It's a cultural thing wherein if you give them work, they'll say yes, they'll take it, they'll do it. If you give them more work because they did a great job at the first instance, they won't say no, they'll still do it. Now, what you need to understand is that just because they're not saying or talking does not mean that everything's okay. So what I recommend that all businesses do when hiring a VA from the Philippines is that you make communication not not requiring for the VA to have assertiveness or to get over her shyness, for example. Make it a standard operating procedure as part of working for you. Okay. So there's no need to find courage or to find the guts to to speak up, for example. Um, Consider that as, for example, part of the default diary that you have a weekly LBs and NTs, for example. LBs and NTs stand for like best and next time. So like best could be when you're working out feedback on work that your VA has delivered. So that's a way of making it an SOP rather than something that the VA needs to find in himself or herself courage and confidence to speak up and approach you for. Okay. Finally, you've got instruction. So when it comes to working with your VA, it helps so that you make use of her time or his time more efficiently. You are, after all, paying for their time. It helps that you've got instructions in a systemized way. Now, this is why I'm doing this webinar, because the second goal of tonight's webinar is that I I give you a way for the VA to help you find off-market property deals in a systemized way with very minimal instructions involved. Okay, so we'll go through each one again a little bit more in detail. Okay. So, like I said, people rush into hiring a virtual assistant. When I started my VA business, I did not immediately recognize this as a potential pitfall where people can trip and not make use of their VA effectively. So basically, people think that it's so easy to hire VA, and then they start working for you, and then the problems come up. Okay. So okay, if you are a small business or you're running as a solopreneur, you don't really have any idea how bigger companies do their hiring and recruitment. Bigger companies have departments, for example, but you're just on your own, and you may not be as organized as you'd like. It's a case of, when you hire a cleaner to come into your house to clean, you kind of tidy it up a little bit before they come in. So it's a little bit like that. You feel a little bit embarrassed that you're taking on a VA, but you're not exactly organized. So that's fine. There are other VA businesses out there that absolutely insist you must have like strict systems in place and everything spick and span, and you're ready to take on a VA. I think realistically, we might wait like 6 months before things are organized, and we can't really do that while we're running a business. And that's the reason why your business is looking a little bit neglected in the admin side. And that's why you're looking to find a VA to kind of take over some of those things. So I think I'm more realistic in saying, even if you are not organized and without any systems in place, have or know at least one immediate systemized task that you can delegate to the VA with minimal instructions. Whether it's, for example, can you take over my social media page today, day one when you hire the VA. And it could be as simple as engaging with the posts that are coming in, or posting on social media, or duplicating all the posts from one platform onto all the other social media websites. um, I think you'll agree with me how much time even that task takes. And that will come with minimal instructions. Okay. And then you can gradually comb through more and more business activities and processes to then systemize. Okay. The other great tip that you can use is, while she's at it or he's at it, your VA, get him or her to document and create the systems for these other business activities and business processes. So, literally, even the systemization can be delegated to the VA. So, start with one task and um, branch out and include more tasks in there. And then finally, you'll have a business that's nice and neat and running smoothly, which you can, delegate to a VA. Okay. And also, the good thing about that is, if you need to replace one VA with another VA, then a system of instructions and delegation is already in place. And isn't that the whole, in a way, goal? Not goal, but isn't that what we'd like for a business to be? It's a business that can run without us having to manage everything every day. Okay. Right. So the second part of working with a virtual assistant is to manage your expectations. Okay. More success and less frustration. That's what we want here, guys, because I understand people have this concept that hiring a VA will solve everything for them. But in fact, like hiring any kind of employee, not just a virtual employee, but any kind of team member that you add or staff, you are just multiplying whatever problems you already had to begin with if you're not managing your expectations. And what do I mean by this? I mean that you delegate the wrong responsibility to the VA will likely lead to failure or not achieving what you want to achieve. And on the other side, on the flip side, is if you give the right responsibility to the VA, that will increase chances of business success. So in this case, as property investors, it's knowing what best to delegate to your property VA. Okay, so we've all heard about the Pareto principle. In the next slide, there's more of a definition of it. So with regards to managing your expectations, the Pareto principle with and lead generation in this instance is basically knowing what kind of work to delegate to the VA, and what how we can apply the Pareto principle here is, just one second. We basically want to be delegating 80% to the VA. So, what's the 80%? It's the low value repetitive tasks to the VA. So, these are the things that take up the most amount of time, that generate the least amount of success to the business, if that makes sense, in comparison to the time it takes and the effort it takes. So, that's where this 80-20 Pareto principle comes in. So, as we can see here from this lovely graph, there's 80%, the blue shade, which is not important. Okay, so lots of admin tasks, lots of data scraping, data entry. Um, these are things that really are annoyingly and irritatingly taking so much of our time. but they do achieve 20%. Okay. And on the flip side, we've got 20% of effort. Okay. And that achieves 80%. So as I mentioned earlier, it's knowing what to delegate to the VA to achieve business success. And what I want to emphasize here is that when you delegate, you mustn't equate that to transferring of responsibility. Okay. I've heard stories, for example, where the VA was given the responsibility to close deals. That's not going to work because, first of all, Filipinos, while they can speak English, we have an accent that's foreign to someone who is more comfortable listening to a British accent. So you don't want, this isn't about racism. You just don't want that kind of objection to begin with, especially if it's a phone call and that kind of closing of deals. And secondly, you paid thousands to learn what you know now with property investing, whereas a virtual assistant, I provide my training to them, and I introduce them to basic concepts of property investing. It's a thing that they will understand what you're asking from them as a task to be delegated to, but not as a concept that then they can take action on it and be effective in solving a problem that someone who's motivated to sell might have. Okay. And this is why, um, wait, I'm just going to jump the gun a little bit. This is why what I'm going to be introducing to you in the next part of tonight's webinar, which is how to use your virtual assistant to find off-market deals for you, is a system that's repetitive and requires minimal instruction from you. And it's something that your VA can immediately work on. Okay. The third aspect of working with your virtual assistant is the cultural perspective. And under cultural perspective, we have things to think about, such as recruitment, the selection of your VA, and communicating with your VA and your VA's motivation, as well as thinking about retention. Okay. So I just want to make it clear that cultural perspective has nothing to do with being politically correct. Okay. This is about making smart decisions in your business. Okay. What do I mean by that? For example, with selection and recruitment, it's knowing which questions to ask to choose the right candidate. I posted on LinkedIn a week or so ago. I am happy to give everyone a copy of the interview questions that you should be asking your Filipino virtual assistant. Okay, because we have not so much mannerisms, but mindsets and perspective in life that means that when you, as a person with a British background or a Western culture, you don't realize that this is happening in their heads, and this might make it really difficult to work with them um, as a virtual assistant for your property investment strategy business. Now, I'm not saying, but of course, what it feels like I'm saying now is that don't hire Filipinos. Not at all. What I'm basically saying is understand what's going on in their heads, and therefore you can work with it, or you can at least select the candidates that will avoid these problems for you. Okay. Communication, as I mentioned earlier, make it a standard operating procedure. Okay. Don't make it an option where the VA has to find it in her or him to have the courage and to overcome their shyness and whatever else it is that, as a Filipino, they have it in their head not to speak up. Okay. I'm not here to try and explain why we're like this, but that's what they are. But if you make it into a standard operating procedure, that means there's no question involved. This is what we do every Monday. This is what we do every Friday. Okay. We have this team huddle for as an example. Okay. And everyone gets to speak up. And so it's not a case of we're singling out one person over the other. Okay. Motivation. It's knowing what drives great performance because happy equals productive. Um, I'm not going to say that there's one overarching cultural background for motivation for Filipinos, but I'm probably just going to suggest that it would be a good idea to just, as a general rule, whether you're hiring Filipinos or you're hiring British people or hiring people from India, just find out what it is that can motivate them. Okay. And finally, retention. And I'm going to admit the uncomfortable truth of disappearing VAs, specifically Filipino VAs. Now, this is a case of people rushing in to hire VAs and not understanding what can trigger this disappearance. Okay. Now, I've mentioned that Filipinos, for example, don't say no when you give them work. They literally will say yes to whatever it is that you're going to give them. Um, I mean, I'm not even kidding you. They will just say yes, even if it's something they have no idea how to do, that they will find too difficult, or that they will uh, that will be too much on their plate, and you'll get VAs that are stressed, VAs that are or not challenged enough or challenged too much. So this is why it's so important to have and understand the cultural aspect of hiring someone from a different country. Okay, I can only give you my perspective as a Filipina, um, and this is my uh, these are my thoughts anyhow, and I'd like to share them with you, and I have. Okay, so having said that, and if you have any questions at this point, just please think about them or put them in the chat box. I'm happy to discuss all of these things with you. But we are now moving on to what I assume you all came in here to join me at this webinar, which is how to use your virtual assistant to find off-market property deals for you. Okay, now, my disclaimer is that I know that there are more than the three strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. I am simply choosing these three strategies because these are the ones that are easy to implement. I have a system for them, and your VA will already be trained with this system because I do the training beforehand. I also chose these three strategies because they require minimal instructions from you. Okay. So what are these three strategies? Right. Okay. So these are sold subject to contract properties, probate properties, and unsold at auction. The idea here is lead generation. Okay. The idea is not to close deals, not to basically in a way um, do remember when I mentioned earlier, it's knowing what to delegate to the VA. You delegate the wrong thing, you will fail. You delegate the right thing, you have business success. So you've got the Pareto principle of 80-20. Delegate the 80% to the VA. 20% is your job, or whoever it is that does the sales closing process in your business. Okay, so these are the three strategies that have the best chances of generating lots of leads using a system that's repetitive and easy to implement, and that's systemized. Okay, so we've got here the first strategy, and I'll show you each one would be sold subject to contract properties. Apparently, and I don't know where exactly this statistic is coming from, but a third of properties that are listed, for example, on Rightmove or Zoopla as sold subject to contract fall through, and they have to be put back onto the market. So What you delegate to the VA is to data scrape all the listings in the area that you select and the other filters that you want to instruct the VA that are sold subject to contract properties. And can you imagine how much time that takes just to kind of get all the addresses? And basically, what you're aiming for is that a third of those properties will fall through and will need to be put back into the market. And what you're doing with what the VA is doing for you is that you do a direct marketing campaign with these sellers, and you get in there and then you basically make it known to them, and I'll show you what the letter template looks like. And you basically let it known make it known to them that if the sale doesn't go through and you need to put it back in the market, get in touch with me. I am i am ready, and I have the funds, or I have the interest to buy your property. Okay. So, with your virtual assistant and how she's going to be doing this, you can do this as a blanket campaign wherein it doesn't require your prior approval to look at the properties that she's data scraped from Rightmove or Zoopla. Or it can be a system wherein she shows them to you first and then you deselect the saved properties that you don't like, and then the rest of the steps will apply. Okay. So I've got a sold subject to contract direct marketing letter template to share with you. At the end of this webinar, I'll put in the chat box a download link for all of these templates, okay? And the great thing about these three strategies is that these direct marketing campaigns is actually something that your VA can do from the Philippines, because there's a website called Stamp. Although it's spelled with a letter N, it's actually pronounced as Stamp, and it's where your VA can order remotely these letters to be printed and posted, franked and posted directly from this company to the vendors here in the UK. Okay. I'll also show you step by step how to do that, but it's your VA who's actually going to be doing this for you. The second strategy is probate properties. Now, there are two sub strategies in this one. I understand that during a pandemic, we have to be a little bit more sensitive and more careful in how we approach this. I would suggest that you do the general prospecting rather than the specific notices direct marketing. Okay, so when you're doing the general prospecting, you're approaching the solicitors that deal with wills and probate, and there's a direct marketing letter template that I will share with you guys. The specific notices direct marketing campaign is where you visit the Gazette and look for listings and notices of someone's deceased estate, and they're basically contacting the solicitors who are dealing with their wills and probate. Okay, so my personal suggestion is to do the general prospecting. I will share with you both letter campaigns in any case if you want to do the specific notices direct marketing campaign. Okay. The third strategy is unsold at auction. This is a little bit like the first strategy, wherein your VA will go to property platforms. In this case, it would be the auction houses websites. And all she's going to do is data scrape the properties that were unsold at auction and put them onto Stamp and do a direct marketing bulk campaign that way. Okay. So you don't have to be doing all of these strategies. You can simply select one or two, or you can be doing all three and get your VA to do each one of them. Okay. What I'm gonna do now is I'll share with you Stamp. Okay. Can you guys give me a thumbs up just so I know that you are seeing what's on my screen? Fantastic, thank you. So this is my account on, well, I just created this earlier just so I can show you and walk you through what your VA will be doing for you. We've got here, now actually before I do that, what I want to show you first is exactly what this instruction system looks like. So I'm a low tech kind of girl. I think you can solve lots of problems using free tools that are low tech. Low tech solutions for high tech problems, what they say. Okay. So I'm using a simple spreadsheet, and what I've got here is three different tabs, and in between them is the data scraping CSV file where your VA will um, enter all the data. The three tabs show the three different strategies. So we've got here sold subject to contract, we've got probate properties, and we've got unsold at auction properties. Okay. So sold subject to contract. Just in case your VA doesn't know where the URL is, it's all in there. So all the instructions that you need to fill in with your own area or your own strategy that you have in mind in terms of your own property investing strategy, then this is all you need to type in. After you type your instructions, in a way, this is your instruction to the VA. When she receives this, this is all she needs to know to start working for you. Okay. So, area, you need to tell her where you want her to find properties, minimum, maximum price. It's basically all the filters that you would put in to Rightmove and Zoopla yourself in order to find properties. Okay, I've put in here in red just so everyone is clear, including the VA of course, because this is the strategy that we're using, is that she needs to be selecting sold subject to contract properties, listings, I mean. Okay, we've got here keywords just in case you want to be putting keywords like cash only or in need of or subject to, because that would indicate that there might be a potential for development in that property. Um, I think I'm not so sure if one of you might be into commercial property. I am going to admit right now that this is just solely for residential property. Um, the strategies that I'm teaching you tonight. But if these are applicable to a commercial property search, then by all means, you can use the same instruction spreadsheet. Okay. So whatever the VA can find using Rightmove, she will then type it in here. And this, when saved as a CSV file, will be recognized by Stamp, and Stamp will generate the bulk campaign to not only print the letters for you, but somehow fold it, put it into an envelope, and then frank it for you and post it for you. Okay. And they're not expensive either. Okay. Then we've got probate. Very simple. Like I said, this isn't, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm just selecting the strategies for lead generation. That is to say, finding as many off-market property deals out there as you can, and then saving it, and then contacting these people or these sellers in a bulk campaign. Okay. So we've got here the probate properties strategy. There's the general prospecting campaign and the estates and probate. Now, just maybe for your interest, we will click at these URLs just so we see what they look like and what your VA will be doing for you. So we've got the general prospecting. It's all it is that you can find a solicitor that deals with wills and probate that are in the area that you're looking for. Now, there are some solicitors that have several offices across the country. And so some of the listings might have more than one office. It's up to you if you want the VA to data scrape only the office in the city or area that you want to invest in, or all of the offices involved. Okay, so my area, for example, is Sheffield. And we've got 315 solicitors to contact. For example, this one will have one office and 13 solicitors. So I am just, so I can show you what it will look like later on when we upload the file in Stamp. Okay, I'm just going to do this. And then we need a contact person. So for example, we will contact Miss Apinar. Already you can see how many clickety steps your VA is likely going to be doing. Miss. Address 1. I'll just do this quickly just so I can show you exactly what tasks are involved. And what it looks like when we upload this later on Stamp. Okay. So that's using the Law Society website. We've also got the Gazette, and this is where we find the notices. So these are individual notices of diseased estates, wherein you can contact the solicitors that is handling their the wills and probate of the estate. Okay. Now, I personally don't want to be doing this, but it's up to you if you want to. So you could say Sheffield. Now, I believe the notices on the Gazette are from 350 years, historical notices. So you don't want to be looking at all the years. So you just maybe want to see the last 6 months, okay? So this could be April of this year to thereabouts October. So we are going to be looking at the details of the executor. Okay, so this is what your VA will be data scraping. And she will be also data scraping the name of the in the estate, okay, the person named in the estate. But let's assume that we have data scraped it, okay, because I want to show you the other strategies. We've got, so we've done sold subject to contract, probate, and then unsold at auction. So in this strategy, you are simply going to be instructing the VA what area you would like to invest in. And if you have the URL of the auction house that you have in mind, you can type it in here, or you can let the VA do the work. And you can just simply say Sheffield, and you can also, here we go, Sheffield, and you can also say just maybe the last 2 auctions or the last 3 auctions, okay? And the VA can then just simply go Sheffield auctions property. And she knows to be looking for not the current and future auctions, but the sold and past unsold and past auctions. Okay. So the process is the same throughout, and view auction lots. Oh no, this is 1st of December. Sorry, guys. Okay, previous auctions, view results. Okay, 2020 October. And if there's any listing here that's shown as unsold, that's what the VA will data scrape and put in the CSV file. Okay, what do these letters look like? I can show you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to upload the CSV files and the letters onto Stamp, and then I can show you what the letters contain. So first, I am going to save this as a CSV file. Okay, sample upload. Okay, how do we do this? So when you get onto Stamp and you log in, you see this dashboard and you can upload the CSV file that you just saved onto here, mailing list, recipient groups. Okay. Okay, so I simply click on create a new group and import. It's pretty intuitive. It's easy enough to do. And here's my file, sample upload. And this is what it's going to look like. So Miss Charlotte Belma Akpinar, and these are the details. And what we do is import data. And that's our, of course, we only have one name on there, but you might have hundreds, okay? And then when we're ready to create a campaign, we click on send mail and then bulk campaigns, and then we create a new campaign. We select the A4 letter. You can also, by the way, do postcards. That can be another lead generation strategy, but that's not something that we will discuss today. You can upload a PDF, and I will show that to you right now, or you can get the VA to type it in directly. So let's say we do an upload PDF. One of the letter templates I've got is, did we say, let's say we do the sold subject to contract property. Okay. This is what it looks like. There are 3 letter templates that you can use for sold subject to contract. It's basically just congratulating them. It's a sneaky way of saying at the very bottom of the letter that, hey, if you do need to put it back on the market, why don't you call me? Okay. So it's talking about, you can organize a removal team. I can recommend so and so. But hey, if things don't work out, if you ever need someone to buy a property from you in the future, I'm your local property guy. Now, this is a template. I'll give you the editable Word doc. You can, of course, change the wordings in here if you think this is too informal or too buddy and you don't want to sound like that. You want to sound a little bit more helpful, for example, or sensitive, then you can edit the content of and the wording of the letter. Your name down here, okay? The thing that your VA will need to do, and they will be taught how to do this, is to then insert an, so you will see later on that the data that we entered in the CSV file will automatically generate in this field. But as you can see, there is no uh, greetings in this letter. So that's because we need to enter this, which would be first name and last name. Okay. So we are going to say that we like this template. We are going to save and finish this. We are going to select this recipient group. Save selection. And it's downloaded the preview and it looks like this. So we've got here the address that we typed in there earlier. We have on here the letter template that we uploaded with your details or your wording on here. Okay. We simply then approve this campaign and we select when we'd like to post it, and that's it. That's done halfway across the globe by someone who's working for you remotely. Okay. Let's go back to the slide. So I'm kind of rushing things because we've got a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that we have time for Q&A later. So I'll go back to the slides because I did promise you as well, where can you find virtual assistants? Okay, sorry about this, guys. I need to go through all the slides. Oh, there we go. Right, so before we get on to where you can find a virtual assistant, I actually want to say, don't hire a virtual assistant until you've tried it yourself. Time yourself, see how long it takes you to do it. How long it took my VA to do this is that at first it took her about 2 hours to just scrape 30 addresses. In the next 2 hours, she managed to be a little bit faster. She managed to scrape 60 addresses. And this is not in one day, okay? So I got her to spend 2 hours today and then 2 hours tomorrow and then 2 hours the next day. So she improved and improved over the course of 3 days. So basically, she managed to find 202 listings in 6 hours. So within 6 hours, you're looking at maybe full-time rate of about £4 an hour. It could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more. That depends on the VA and what their expectation is for their salary. But basically, I'd like for you to try and do this yourself. Like I said, I'll put in a download link in the chat box so that you can download these templates and then you can create the campaign yourself. By the way, when you open an account with Stamp, and I earn no affiliate, I don't earn any affiliate, what you call that, commissions from them, by the way. But if you open an account with them, they instantly give you £2 credit, so you can test and post it straight away. So you can really see that they do indeed post the letters for you. Okay. Right. So we're here. Where to find virtual assistants? Okay, so here are the places where you can find VAs. There's Free Up. Free Up is there's no hiring involved. You pay per hour, so it's on a in a way contract basis. Okay, you contract a VA to work for you for a certain number of hours over the next 2 days, for example. Okay, I'm not so sure how much they charge. I believe they charge from about £8 to £10 an hour. There's Upwork as well. Again, there's no hiring involved. This time it's pay per job rather than pay per hour. Okay, so you find people on Upwork with a specific requirement. It's a bit like if you go to maybe trusted people and then you find someone to do a plumbing work for you, where you go on Upwork and you find someone to say, uh, do a video editing for you or data scrape people on LinkedIn for you, for example. Okay. So FreeUp is a pay per hour kind of website. Upwork is a pay per job kind of website. And I think the most common one to find Filipino virtual assistants is onlinejobs.ph. Now, this one, there's hiring involved. You will go crazy with hundreds of CVs on there. It is subscription based, so you are going to need to be paying a monthly fee for it. You may only need to use it for 1 month. It's fine. I'm not so sure if they have a free trial period. They might do. Okay. LinkedIn, you can find lots and lots of VAs on LinkedIn. You just type in virtual assistants. However, the VAs on LinkedIn are generally freelancers. That is to say, they're there because they're already working for a number of clients. So they kind of broker their own service to several clients. They are being their own free up or Upwork. Okay. Um, and also generally they're also already they might already be working or hired by a business if they're on LinkedIn. Okay. How I find VAs is um, I I do in a way I lead generate my VAs by offering my training courses. So I train them and I do an induction so that let me just admit one person in. So I do training, and that's how I find my VAs. They go through an aptitude test, so I know for sure that once they start working for a property investor, whether the property investor needs them for something else other than lead generation, or whether it is for lead generation, then at least I can be confident that they can start doing that kind of work for them. I also do a criminal background check on my VAs. Um, because you are going to be giving them your passwords. They're going to see details about your clients. And what if you have vulnerable clients, for example, if you do social housing or supported accommodation, or you've got clients who are high net worth individuals. Okay. So it's really, really critical that someone does a criminal background check for you. Okay. And then I do a pre qualifying interview before you actually interview them. I've got clients who do not have time to do an interview. And so they actually just rely on me doing the pre interview for them. And I kind of bolt on the VA to their business. Okay. That's an option. Um, right. So what I offer is not just that I find you a VA, is that I have industry knowledge and I can offer cultural mediation. Also, as some of my clients might know right now here, is that I also offer a bit of a weather report to my clients because at the moment or a few hours ago, there was a super typhoon that ran across the country. And so I just wanted to let the VA's bosses know that they might lose internet connection or electricity in the time that the storm is running through the country. Okay. So yes, I do a bit of weather reporting as well. And then finally, technical support. So if the VA is stuck with scraping some kind of detail from Rightmove or Zoopla, they don't come to you, they come to me and ask me the questions. Unless it has to do with an instruction wherein she needs to clarify from you so that she wants to make sure that she's scraping the correct property for you. And okay, I'm gonna just jump the gun and maybe the Q&A question you're probably gonna be asking how much VAs will be charging. So roughly about £3.50 an hour for full time or £4.50 an hour for part time. Okay. This is not set in stone. Some VAs have other skills that may mean that they want to be expecting more. Like, for example, they might have video editing or they're actually good at SEO. So if you have a website that that finds motivated sellers, for example, then these VAs with those extra skills will be wanting more. But this is just a guideline, okay? Some VAs are fresh graduates or even still in school. They are in their last couple of years in college, and they have less work experience, but they have just enough technical skills and IT skills to do admin and lead generation for you. Then they might be charging less than £3.50. So these are the guidelines. These rates include my fees, and I don't do a sourcing fee, and I don't do a monthly fee that's separate from what you will be paying your VA, and there's no setup fee either. I do my training for my VAs free of charge, just to be sure that I don't exclude people who, um, if I had to charge for their training, who might find it, a little bit at a disadvantage to find opportunities to work as a VA. Okay. And I hope I am not too late. I am 3 minutes late, so I'm sorry about that, guys. I will stop sharing my screen now, and then you can unmute yourselves if you've got questions. And happy for you. For okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop recording in case your questions are personal.